A leader's primary job is to create value with and through others. And I actually believe that the power of capable leadership is demonstrated best through appropriate and consistent nudging. When I hear leaders talk about the type of leader that they want to be, they'll say things like, I want to be a servant leader, confident, strong, energizing. I want to foster trust, et cetera. And there's a pretty big list. But I'm always curious, like, what does that really mean beyond what to me often sounds like sort of business virtue signaling, if you will? And again, a leader's job is to continually create more and more value over time for the organization that they work for. And there's three things that the leader really needs to have their head around. One, the business model. Two, the value of the products and services that you have. And three, culture. So on the business model, do you really understand how the organization makes money? Do you understand the pricing, the expenses, everything that goes into it? Like really understand it and how it applies to your team? And then two, when you think about the value of the products and services, do you really understand the value? Do you know what the marketplace is saying about the value of your products and services? And can you sink your teeth into continually improving that value over time? In the third category, culture, what are the sort of behaviors and attitudes that cause the best results to happen for the organization? Do you know that inside and out? And we want to really get our heads around those things. We're going to be leading and kind of driving the entire team in that direction. Now, it's really common for, I think, all leaders to have team members that are making decisions and taking actions that are not fully in alignment with those three things. And it's happening really quite often. I get to work with a lot of different organizations. And one of the common things that I hear from leaders is, how come people aren't doing what they should be doing? Don't they understand what's going on? And that kind of becomes, really a steady state. And I can hear that complaint from a leader for a really long time. It can go on for years. So it's something about how they're showing up as a leader and how they're developing their team members. Whenever we're doing the really hard, smart, and I think should mostly be fun work of creating more and more value for our customers, it's important for leaders, all of us, to be consistently and continually sort of nudging all the folks on our teams in the direction for 100% alignment to the business model, to the value of our products and or services, and the value creation culture that we want to have. So we've all been around activities where that's not going on. And I would say the reason that these decisions and actions aren't being taken in a way that's fully in alignment with those three things is because they don't understand it either. So our job as a leader is to constantly get them moving in that direction and making decisions around that stuff. And the goal here is to get everybody on the same track where they really get it and they're actually picking up speed on their own. And what I mean by that is they're creating more and more value on their own. And you actually know that you're starting to get this right because you've done a lot of nudging. And for example, I'll come in and work with a new team. It's like, oh my gosh, they're all incredibly capable. And yet the decisions they're making are just a little bit to sometimes significantly off in all three of those categories. And then after an appropriate amount of nudging, and if you're intentional about it, it can be in as little as 2 or 3 months where, oh my gosh, I have to do 50% less nudging because they're starting to get it. And within 6 months to a year, I hardly have to do anything. And it's wonderful to see that everybody's making the right decisions, taking the right actions. And they're always 1 or 2 steps ahead of where I thought they probably should or could be at that point in time. So that's how I know I'm getting it right. And you've actually really won when they're starting to nudge others to go in that direction. So now we're sort of cascading that out through the organization. So again, that's where I think the real power of leadership is demonstrated. It's this consistent, appropriate nudging around the business model, the value of the products and services that you have, and the value creation culture that you want. And on the culture side, I always look through the holistic value creation lens. So we're talking about material value creation, we're talking about emotional energy value creation, and spiritual value creation. And spiritual for me is always about connectedness. So as a leader, you're doing all of the nudging foundationally, how are you keeping value creation in balance so everything moves faster and you have a huge competitive advantage out there? It's important to have some kind of intentional operating system or agreed upon way of creating value inside the organization. So this foundation where you're getting full alignment around whatever the goals are, how you consistently increase the value of the organization. I think that's really important. But once that foundation is in place, people will be running around doing a lot of things. And sometimes they don't end up getting the value. Well, why? And for me, it fully comes back to this consistent nudging around those three things. So in doing that, I actually believe this is where the real power of leadership is demonstrated. And we can get away from things that sound good, like I want to be a servant leader or any other type of leader out there. Looks good, feels good, sounds good. How do you really break it down and in a sort of practical way become a leader that increases the value of their organization appropriately for the team that they're leading over time, and that just continually grows? That's the real power of leadership.